Hi, it's Dr. Betsy Greeleaf, and we're back with another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. I'm very excited to be talking today with Dr. Kasia Kynes, who is a doctor of functional nutrition. And what I think is fascinating is one of the only people that I know of whose specialty is Epstein Barr. So I am fascinated to talk to her about this because this is something that we kind of brush off in traditional medicine and really can cause people a lot of issues. So thank you so much, Kasia, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
So how did Epstein Barr become your specialty?
It's just a journey of being there and taking one step and another step and seeing where people are hurting and addressing that and investigating that and taking another step. So, there was autoimmunity, there was SIBO, there was Hashimoto's epidemic, and then there was, well, wait a second, what is one of the Hashimoto's causes? And then there was a loss of a friend. Who died from complications of an autoimmune disorder. And then I always ask the question why I couldn't help her. And I feel when you ask the question, when you really have the intention, teachers come, situations come. And so once I got a hunch of it, I was really floored that, I took the best training in the country I could, and nobody ever talked about this virus. Even at the conference of functional medicine, that when there was one chiropractor lecturing about Epstein Barr virus, he's trying to figure it out. He has a nice lecture. He had standing ovation. So we're looking. We are all looking. Well, we don't have to look. I found the solutions, but it is an epidemic of epidemics.
And that's the thing, like I said, brought up before, in traditional medicine, Epstein-Barr virus, which many people might also know it, that's the virus that causes mono or mononucleosis. In traditional medicine, it just gets like, okay, yeah, whatever. Most people are exposed to it. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. Like, and that's basically all we get in medicine. So can you tell us a little bit, I guess, more about this virus and how do people get it and what's the concern?
Most of us have it. It's a little bit like Candida, you can't just eradicate it. It's on the journey inside of our body. 95% of global population has it, but it is an opportunist. So think about EBV like a virus in the computer. There's an opportunity, it will turn on. If you know what to do, you will turn it off. It's pretty predictable, which nobody knows really. But if you look at medical literature, and I confirmed it in my practice, it is pretty predictable. And it's reversible and it's treatable. And this is shown in medical literature as well. But it's a ticking bomb. And once you get a mono, the worst thing that doctors can say is go sleep, rest, because there's nothing we can do. Unfortunately, some people recover after 8 grueling weeks of being bedridden, but some people do not recover to their baseline. That's the community that we serve. That's the people, that's the sensitive people that end up with chronic fatigue and autoimmunity long term, because the virus continues to get into your cells and infect them and creates the infected cells are almost like cancer cells. They lose the ability to self-terminate. They continue being cloned. So it just goes on and on. So mono or reinfection, like reactivation, which is another mono, people can have many monos in their lifetime, which is also not something that doctors will say.
I did not know this.
Yeah. It's well acknowledged. There's a chronic mononucleosis syndrome in medical literature. So waiting and sitting on it is not good enough at all. And when you know what to do, you can turn it off in a few days. You can really turn off the signaling, calm it down, and you can have quality of life and be protected. It's an opportunist, and its activity drops if your nutritional status improves. Voila.
That's something I was thinking back, like I had mono when I was in high school and did not have many health problems before that. But afterwards,
Oh,
there
really?
were multiple years that they were like, I was seeing rheumatologists.
Yes.
They're like, you're developing lupus and you're,
Yes.
and at an extreme fatigue
Yes. So you
but
had it. Yes.
nobody ever connected that. So
No, we have, and that's why we built up a big website called EBVHelp, HELP.com. So you can literally go into conditions page and track conditions and click on PubMed links, because I need people to understand, yes, lupus is classic, rheumatoid arthritis, especially juvenile, celiac is classic, diabetes type 1, multiple sclerosis. I'm not saying that every lupus is caused by EBV, but the research is there. There's so many conditions that at a certain point when I was writing the book, I stopped researching. I remember the last point was, wait, I've been working with gut issues all these years. I wonder if IBD, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis are like, no, it can't be. But wait, let me just go to PubMed. And according to research, about 60% of both can be initially triggered by EBV. At a certain point, we may not fix it with, anti-EBV protocol, but I had to sit down because it didn't even compute in my head. I've seen all of it, but not IBD. So it's something else, and it's oncogenic, so it can cause cancer.
Wow. Oh my goodness, that is crazy. And especially because it's so prevalent that this could be really a trigger for so many other different conditions.
Yes,
so.
and you had it. So there's so many stories. The problem is when people really tank because they had enormous pressure, stress mounting, betrayal, or loss of the loved one, the kind of stress when you really go internally deep in sorrow. This is where hormones change. After birth, big avalanche of hormonal change, very fast. When you reach puberty, or when you go into perimenopause, when there's changes in hormones, that can happen as well. But the feeding ground is often adrenaline or cortisol, the stress hormones. And so I remember being at a conference, and then during the break, I ran to the scientist who had been speaking. He had worked with NASA. And I said, look, I read in a study that astronauts have a higher risk of reactivating EBV. And I'm standing there ready to pound on him. And he said, yep. He's like, yeah, of course. When they go in space, they are given prescription medication, antiviral, prophylactically, because we know it. And it's not that it's perceived stress. Yes, of course. But it's, the claustrophobia, the circadian rhythm, the diet, the sleep pattern. That's very stressful physiologically on the body, no matter how prepared you are. So I always tell our community, you're competing with astronauts, so don't feel bad.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That is really amazing. And then I'm thinking about too, how many people nowadays are just under so much stress, just the stress of modern life. So
yeah. And it's, and we're in the COVID world, if I may say so, and it's a virus. So viruses become virulent when the nutritional status drops, and it's dropping. I go into organics, but organics is not even organics do not have the nutrient density that foods should have. If you don't eat organics, you're really depleted. Up to 80% of chronic illness is caused by subclinical or clinical deficiencies. And then on top of that, we have chemicals too. And the EBV thrives on certain chemicals, environmental chemicals like dioxins. You go and watch fireworks, or you burn, fire, or you inhale polluted air from burning forests, and that will reactivate EBV. That's well studied. So it's much harder to have a good foundational nutritional status. And then stress depletes the most essential nutrients, minerals, B vitamins, depletes them. So not only do we have to replenish what we lose in this long-term stress, right? But we have to replenish on top of what we're eating. And it's pretty amazing what happens when you provide all that and calm things down and clean the toxicity level. Then people come to life and we turn off the virus. And let's not forget mold and Wi-Fi technology. They can affect the way we can tackle EBV. That's part of that pollution that really stalls the whole process. So it's pretty complex because of how we live, but the virus is not complex.
Yeah, because there's so many different factors that sound like that could be triggering this, or you get the virus because it's out there, but then you're dealing with it being in your system and kind of coming back or reactivating.
Right. If you have the right nutrients, you just stall it in perpetuality, and that's the best scenario.
Yeah, it's funny. Years ago, so I deal with a lot of pelvic pain patients in my practice, and it's very hard. There's not a lot of research on it. And I started on my own going, there's got to be a common denominator. This was before I knew about gut health, which is now I'm finding gut health does play a big role in it, which sounds like because it may be also playing a role in the EBV. But I found so many patients where I would test them for their Epstein Barr virus and their levels would be just ridiculously high. And so, and unfortunately I never put it through in a study. I just kind of did it on my own, but then I didn't have the tools as a traditional doctor to know what to do next. It was like, okay, well, it was more for my interest, like, oh, look, you know what? Maybe there's a connection between interstitial cystitis, which is a bladder condition, or your pelvic pain syndrome, or because in that population, from my standpoint, we also see a very high rate of these pelvic pain patients also have gut symptoms. They have migraines, they have joint pain. So it sounds like maybe the Epstein Barr is really potentially a connection, something that could connect all those things together.
It could, and I'm so impressed that you were actually testing and you were seeing that. We should have known about each other before. Maybe we could have done a study or kind of a group study. Interstitial cystitis. Again, I don't think it's in my book because I didn't even look for it, but I had a student with it, and it's like, well, let's go to PubMed, and boom, there it was. Like, okay, sometimes there's not many studies. There's just a case report, and here's the connection. We need more studies, obviously. But there's a lot. So you'll finding them. Mm-hmm.
That is great. And we'll talk more about this when we come back from the commercial break.
Always been my mission to help people with their health. Organs are some of the most nutrient-dense superfoods on the planet, and yet we're not getting them in our diet. My name is James Berry. I've been a chef for over 16 years. I came up with this new product. It's called Pluck. It's an organ-based all-purpose seasoning. In Pluck, you don't need to know how to cook. Just simply either make a food how you would and finish it with Pluck. You can add it to the recipe while you're making it. You can finish it with Pluck. You can simply just season your meal with Pluck. By being a shelf-stable spice, can be added to any food: popcorn, rice, salad, chicken, fish, eggs, you name it, and you can use it with Pluck, the organ-based all-purpose seasoning that's versatile and goes with any food. Nutrition in a pinch.
So we're back now with Dr. Kasia Kynes. So we were talking about the Epstein Barr and all these things that it can cause, but you have a book. What's the name of your book about? What is it about?
Epstein Barr virus solution, as simple as that. And it has a big solution. And I kept asking my designer, make it bigger, 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 because we do have it. Finally, people, we don't have to suffer. It's done deal. it's doable.
Yeah, so for people out there that I guess they probably fall in a number of different categories. Either they know they've had it in the past and don't realize it's affecting them now, or there's people that know it's affecting them, or there's people who have no clue and this is the first time that they've even heard about Epstein Barr virus. Where would you tell someone where do they start with trying to find the solutions other than getting your book?
So there's a couple of questions there. So number one, if they don't know anything, they just go to EBVHelp.com, because I don't want people to go anywhere except the research science, what's proven and what I verified in my practice. It's real. So on the homepage, you can take a direct to consumer test with the right antibodies, because that's the missing link. Doctors do not test properly, do not interpret properly. So you can click locally, go, and then there is a page for lab interpretation. There's an even video there free where I walk through everything. And then if you don't know at all, on that homepage also there is a quiz. There's a button for quiz, there's a button for testing. The quiz will walk you through yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. 4 pages of different conditions, symptoms, usual, unusual, everything we know from research. And you just check those and you'll see, oh my gosh, I had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Oh my gosh, I have low platelets and I don't know why. Oh my gosh, I have nosebleeds, or, very sensitive to mosquito bites. Unusual, usual, all is there. It's an eye opener. So then, and then you can say, okay, maybe I get the book, or maybe I get the recovery program. So the website has a lot of resources. We're just adding an article basically on foods, because that's the only page we don't have finished. We have the blog. We'll put it in probably by the time your viewers are watching, it will be there. So that alone, that website is like, okay, go there and start processing and making connection.
That is great. And so, and when it comes to food, you were talking a lot about organics. What other kind of steps can people do to eat healthy?
If it's more than one ingredient, like the easiest way your body assimilates nutrients is from what we call whole foods. So it's a food that has one ingredient in cell, and you can imagine it grow. Okay, some people go into vegan diet, but you have vegan marshmallows, but that's highly processed. It's not food, it's entertainment,
I like that. Yeah.
So the more and one thing I will say, especially in the States, we became fruitophobic. Yeah. And in terms of antioxidant load, fruits have the highest capacity, and they have the highest water content, and they have the sweetness we desire, and they have the fiber to slow down the glucose. So it's a perfect food for your brain, and perfect food for your mood, and perfect snack between meals when you're hungry, instead of going to something sweet that doesn't serve you. But even in functional medicine, it's the concept of fruits have too many carbs, too much sugar.
I know. I was going to say, I'm so glad you're saying this about fruits, because my husband, I'm throwing him under the bus right now. He won't eat fruits because fruits are bad because of the carbs and the sugars in them. And you see that a lot in a lot of the popular diets with paleo and keto. Yes. They tend to be staying away from the fruits, and you kind of get stuck into this meat and vegetables.
Oh, no. Well, so that our viewers understand the concept and the reference frame, any therapeutic diet is short term. If you are on SIBO diet, low FODMAP, that's temporary until you clear SIBO and repair your motility. If you have leaky gut, you have to be on paleo or autoimmune paleo. You fix the reason why you have to be on this diet, so you can then expand. And sometimes people have sensitivities because of EBV itself. And so when we do everything right, they start expanding on the diet and doing well. If you think about it, one of the biggest contributors to your strong immune system is your terrain in the gut, but it's also formed by your fiber. And fiber is in legumes, in bulk, in legumes and whole grains. This is the bulk of your fiber, the most versatile. fiber. And so there's very small percent of population that actually has problems with lectins or, agglutinins in beans. And sometimes it's just one kind of bean. So you have to really, you can't take a blanket approach and take out whole food groups. Molybdenum, for example, is only in whole grains and in legumes. You cut those out. If you don't have molybdenum, I'll give you an example. If you don't have molybdenum, you have inflamed gut. If you don't have molybdenum, you have candida creating more acetaldehyde, which is like formaldehyde, which is very dangerous. You need that molybdenum. It's anti-inflammatory. So we in functional medicine got into a corner, and it's a reminder that in the medical community, we don't have a good foundational understanding of nutrition.
Yeah. And that's something in traditional medicine, medical school, we did not get any nutrition. So like no joke, just this year heard about how important molybdenum is in your diet. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So yeah. And I'm thinking like for all the years that I ate paleo and how I cut out legumes and beans and grains because I was like, oh, it's not paleo, it's bad. And like, now I wonder, because there's so many different diets, it gets very confusing.
Yeah, it's a staple for communities. It's affordable. It's non-toxic to the environment, unlike the meat industry and methane producing, farming for animals. So yeah, I mean, if people struggle with the gut, there is a reason, we need to go after that. I do damage control and people come, they're wasting away because they've been on these diets, and the therapeutic diets become so limited, people start reacting to those foods within that limit, and there's no going back. You have to do something about it. So I'm not saying these diets are not necessary. They're therapeutically necessary sometimes, periodically.
But they're like, you were saying as a treatment, not as like, let's do this as a long-term lifestyle necessarily. Right. Yeah. That's really fascinating. I know, because I love it when I have people that are like, I'm on keto, and they come in and they're like eating bacon and like, I'm like, well, you can't just survive on bacon. Like that's not.
It would be nice. It would be nice if people had like you have a physical once a year. If you could have Dr. Joe Pizzorno had that during that once. In future, we'll have a physical for nutrition with a clinical nutritionist, so we can look at the nutrients, your levels, where you are, what's depleted. People will misinterpret things. I had somebody who was put on a very severe detox protocol, but she continued on it for 2 years. And there's no supervision. There was a lot of problem with that. And then you develop, some people are so sick and try different things, they develop orthorexia. So they lose the ability to have a healthy relationship to food. They're overly cautious. Yeah. And so that's almost like psychological problem now.
I've seen that. I had one patient once that came in and all she was eating is chicken breasts and water because she was so afraid that everything else was going to make her sick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't survive on just that. We need to get some other things in there.
Yeah. We have an amazing body. Amazing. If we can only get out of the way. So we can't forget that. And when people have fears, we do quite a lot of spiritual support work, emotional healing, and joy work in our recovery process in the EBV, because that kind of opens the door that you need to open in order for physical healing to start happening. We are turning that off, so you can't really go into healing. You live in that fear, and we forget what joy is.
And that's always so important.
You can't be in fear. So it's like it gets complicated. So I always say the EBV part is not complicated. All the other things are can be.
I agree. And I always talk to people that if you don't have that body, mind, spirit balance, you could be doing all the things for the body, but to heal because those other two components are going to be affecting the body still.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. It's difficult, though. It's challenging. And I find that the simplest way to reach people with this message is find one thing you love to do. Play music, go walking, do something. Remember what you used to love when you were a kid? Do a little bit of that, forget about the time, get into that space. Because that's easy for people, like meditation. Oh my gosh, I can't meditate, I'm too stressed, doing something. But that just go back to the wonderful fun you had as a kid, or what you missed, what you forgot and buried because you're so miserable. So sometimes that kind of opens that, that journey.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
the work we do.
and we're all under so much stress. I don't want to add another stress that people are like, oh my God, this is another virus I didn't know about. Now I'm stressed about to find this out. I think this is a great way to be like, hey, listen, there is something and there's things you can do about it.
Oh, yes.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's the best part. That's the best part.
And once again, where can people find more information about you?
Well, we have two websites. One is my name, kasiakynes.com, and one is EBV Help, EBV HELP, very simple. And so the EBV one is probably better because we put everything related to EBV. So from A to Z, wherever people are, whatever needs are, they can connect with me through there as well. So we are here. We have a great team. We are committed. We will not stop. We're going for the first 1 million people and doctors. We want to train everyone, teach everyone, and change the way the medicine is done about this virus.
I love this, especially like I said, because, I don't even remember at all getting any training in actual medical school about this virus. And then even as a practitioner coming out, it was like, okay, I found it in patients. Now what? And I would send them to infectious disease because I was like, well, I don't know what to do with it. And the infectious disease would be like, all right, there's nothing you can do. So it's so nice to know that there are solutions. And that's why I love the integrative medicine standpoint, the integrative and functional medicine, because it really brings so much to like add to traditional medicine that I think it's wonderful that we have these options. So
yeah, and I thank you for what you do. Your work is so needed. There's so many of you needed out there to help women, honestly.
Yeah. And so once again, I want to remind everybody to go follow Dr. Kasia Kynes and go check out her website. And you're on social media also, so go check her out there. And I'm gonna go myself and go take that quiz on your website. So when we're done here, I'm going to take your quiz. And also just take a look at my website at drbetsygreenleaf.com. And don't forget, check out WYTV.org, because WYTV.org community broadcasters are involved in a lot of different things in the community. Check out their websites, look at the other shows and programming that we have, and please feel free to donate, because your donations not only help bring amazing content like our show today, but we're also using it to help support the community. So you can see what kind of community involvement that we have from that website. And once again, Dr. Kasia, I want to thank you for being with us today. And also just remind people, tune in next week for another show of Body, Mind, Spirit. Thank you.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.